Hello, this is Wallace Smith with another Tomorrow's World webcast. It's great to have you here. And I have to admit, this topic today may not seem very newsworthy to some of you, but believe me, it is. Just a little while back, there was quite a kerfuffle. It's one of my favorite words, kerfuffle, but a bit of an argument between leading figures in the fashion and the music world. On one side, there was Dolce and Gabbana, the fashion gurus. On the other side, there was Elton John. The cause of the controversy were some comments that Dolce and Gabbana made in an interview, I think with the Telegraph UK. It certainly was the Telegraph, actually, that reported the comments. Now, I'm going to read to you, though, from Elle magazine. It's not exactly what you'd normally think of as a news source, but they have a great summary of all the comments that were made. The title of the article in Elle magazines from March 19th, 2015 was "Elton John Calls Out Dolce and Gabbana for Controversial Comments." And what had happened, as the Telegraph reported, that Dolce and Gabbana had made the following comments. It said that the family is not a fad. In it, there is a supernatural sense of belonging. And they said, now understand, these two designers themselves are homosexuals. They said, we oppose gay adoptions. The only family is the traditional one. No chemical offsprings and rented uterus. Life has a natural flow, and there are things that should not be changed. That's pretty strong words and very clear coming from homosexuals themselves, saying they do not think the family should be altered or messed with. They don't agree with what they were calling in the interview, which is part of what grabbed a lot of attention, synthetic children. You get the impression they weren't talking about the children themselves being necessarily somehow less than human, but rather the concept of synthesizing a family in an unnatural way and creating children in these ways so that their fellow homosexuals could have children in their quote-unquote family. Well, Elton John, the famous singer, British musician, who himself with what is called his husband, have a couple of children that were conceived in one of these artificial manners so that they would be able to have children themselves. He reacted, it was very offended. Anyway, he actually put out a message on Instagram where he said to Dolce & Gabbana, "How dare you refer to my beautiful children as synthetic? And shame on you for wagging your judgmental little fingers at IVF," meaning in vitro fertilization, "a miracle that has allowed legions of loving people, both straight and gay, to fulfill their dreams of having children. Your archaic thinking is out of step with the times, just like your fashions." Oh, I'm sure that was meant to hurt. And says, "I shall never wear Dolce and Gabbana again." And then he ends with a hashtag that seems to be encouraging people to consider boycotting Dolce and Gabbana. Now, I won't comment too much on the fact that apparently within a day or so, Mr. Elton John was actually seen with a Dolce & Gabbana bag. It's hard to know whether that was a real serious boycott or not. But a lot of people jumped on that. A lot of famous people jumped on that. These comments by these fashion designers that seemed so contrary to their own community's position were to be shamed, as if somehow they should be shunned in their community, that no one should be allowed really to say such things. It really was fascinating to me because it highlighted that there actually are people of that community, the homosexual community, who don't agree with what you would call the party line, who actually believe themselves that their lifestyle does not lend itself to actually crafting families in a way that is just as good as the way, frankly, that God designed, with a man and a woman and children. But also, and to me, this was personally the most fascinating because it caused me to dive into the subject a bit more than normal. It brought up the concept, the realization, that there are actually children of homosexual parents who themselves have come to realize that it's not healthy for them. And their voices generally aren't listened to as much. They don't have the kind of platform because society seems to disagree with those comments, and yet facts are facts. In particular, a couple of articles caught my eye. One was actually written in response to this. It was by a Robert Oscar Lopez, writing for First Things magazine, and he titles it, "Synthetic Children, Why Elton John is Wrong About Dolce and Gabbana." And he mentions in that he himself is a homosexual man. Actually, he considers himself a bisexual man. And he says, "I am not neutral. I agree with Dolce and Gabbana. Elton John is wrong. This is not to insult his children or take away from their humanity, nor is it to demean the character of men who love men everywhere. He actually is not necessarily against that. He says, I am just as queer as both of these men. I have been out as a bisexual since 1989 and have withstood a great deal of hostility, both from the LGBT community and conservative Christians for refusing to use the label ex-gay to describe myself. But he says, I also grew up with a lesbian couple without much connection to my father. In the process of writing my most recent book, Jephthah's Daughters, I dealt with countless testimonials from children of same-sex couples all over the world. Stefano Gabbana gets us. And he talks in detail about in the article how it's not healthy. He recognizes it was not a healthy environment in which that he had to grow up in. There's another article that I'll just refer to very quickly for the sake of time. And it's, again, written by someone, in this case it's a heterosexual woman, but who was reared by lesbian parents. And she was writing for the Federalist, and she titled her article, Dear Gay Community, Your Kids Are Hurting. And she writes about the book that people have talked about, Heather Has Two Mommies. She says, that was my life. I've lived that life. And she says, yet I came to recognize later that I was aching for a father, that I truly was missing something in my life. Even though I had two adults who loved me and cared for me, I truly was lacking something that has harmed me in my life. And she notes that the voices of people like that aren't being heard. And it reminds me, frankly, of all things, Exodus 20. Where God says, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not lie. Embedded within that commandment is the need for society to be honest, to be open. If there are true facts, we can't dismiss them or shame them just because they're not popular. They need to be discussed. They need to be out in the open. And in this particular case, you have voices coming from the homosexual community, as quiet as they are and as drowned out as they are, that are saying, in the end, these kinds of families that we're trying to create synthetically simply are not equal to, in benefit to children, the family the way God designed it. One man and one woman in holy matrimony. Let's keep listening because those voices are out there. That's all we have. I do hope you'll check out our information on tomorrowsworld.org as well as our our homes, if you will, on Facebook and Twitter. And we'll see you right here next time.